Welcome to a realm where personal growth meets expansive spirituality and where we're not just scratching the surface. We're diving deep, widening our perspectives, and having a darn good time doing it. This is the Enliven Podcast, and I am your host, Jen Hamilton. You'll enjoy an infusion of motivation, empowerment, and inspiration that will resonate in every aspect of your life. Expect captivating stories, heartfelt musings, and my own personal experiences. But that's not all. I'm bringing awe-inspiring individuals to the table, so get ready to meet some remarkable souls whose wisdom and stories will leave you spellbound. No topic is off limits here. Brace yourself for raw authenticity, unfiltered vulnerability, and yes, the occasional splash of explicit language. We're delving into the realms of the esoteric, mystical, and the woo-woo, unafraid to explore the extraordinary. So if you are ready to venture beyond the surface, to explore the depths of your soul, and to awaken the magic of life, if your heart says yes, then hit that play button and let the Enliven Podcast guide you on this remarkable expedition. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Enliven Podcast. I'm your host, Jen, and today's very special guest today is Kelly Gifford. Kelly is an ex-personal trainer turned transformational coach, specializing primarily in body image and relationships with food. After being a personal trainer for several years, she dove deeply into personal development, originally for her mental health and for the success of her business, and started to realize that her perceived healthy lifestyle as a fitness trainer and nutritionist was just a convenient way to disguise an eating disorder and abusive relationship with herself. Her journey of reconnecting back to herself beyond the conditioning of diet culture, the fitness industry, and entrepreneurship was the groundwork for the work she does today in coaching women to feel at home inside of themselves and in their bodies. Kelly and I had an amazing conversation, and she also offers a 6-stage transformational program for healing your relationship with food, exercise, your body, and yourself, which you'll find the link to in the show notes. So without further ado, let's dive in. Hello and welcome, Kelly. How are you going today?
Oh, I'm so good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm amazing, as always, and it's such a pleasure to have you here. I'm so excited to dive into conversation with you today. You're a fellow life coach.
hmm
It's quite a broad term, isn't it? Because we help so many different people with so many different things. So I'd love to hear, Kelly, what is your magic to the world?
I love that question. Yeah, I mean, my journey as a coach started in the fitness industry, and there was always something in me that was obvious, but I was afraid of in the very beginning of my coaching journey that did not want to be put into a box as far as how I worked with people, what types of questions that I asked them, how much I expanded into their lives beyond the thing that they came to me for. And I was really lucky at the beginning of my coaching journey to have mentorship that supported me in leaning into that desire that I had to talk to my clients beyond the surface level, like I want to lose weight and I want to get my shit together with working out and nutrition. And over the years, as I evolved through my own journey with my body image and my relationship with food and exercise, that, of course, as it does for all of us coaches, bleeds into the work that we're doing. Because when we go through our own work, I like to say that as a coach, doing our own personal development work and healing work is part of our professional development as well. And so my work as a coach has evolved into really just supporting women and coming home to themselves and feeling safe within their body, learning how to trust themselves, trust their body, and ultimately just love themselves at the end of the day, which is easier said than done from my own personal experience and through working with a lot of people as well.
Yeah, I can resonate with that so deeply as well. What are you finding is perhaps a common theme for people that you're working with? Like what are people working through the most? And most of all, where did it come from?
Yeah, I think that so many women that can acknowledge at least that they really struggle with their relationship with themselves, ultimately are struggling with really harsh self-criticism, self-doubt, being really hard on themselves, picking themselves apart, assuming that other people are judging them, almost like judging themselves through the eyes of other people, assuming what other people are thinking about them, thinking about what they wear, thinking about what they're doing, right? And I have explored these patterns within myself over many years. And what I have found within myself, and then through the exploration of other people working with these same patterns, is that all of these things are ways that we actually learned to protect ourselves. And when we went through life, we had earlier life experiences that created discomfort. They were painful. Maybe it was bullying. Maybe it was thinking that you looked really good one day and then someone making a snarky comment at you, or judging the shirt that you were wearing that you thought looked good. And that came with a lot of shame. Perhaps it came with a feeling of rejection or not fitting in, which is just ultimately going to feel unsafe. It's going to get in the way of us meeting our core needs of connection and love and significance and safety in the world. Then we are going to adapt to that discomfort, to that pain, and create patterns to try to avoid those pains happening again. And so, for
Mm,
a lot of people, they avoid the pain of being shamed by someone else, being rejected by someone else, by shaming and rejecting themselves first, so that they can look out for everything that's wrong with them, in quotes, everything that could be judged harshly by someone else, that could be rejected or cause them to be abandoned by someone else, so that they can get ahead of it and try to fix it. And at the very least, if they can't do that, then they can at least know it within themselves first, so that if it does get judged or shamed or rejected by somebody else outside of them, then at least they won't feel stupid or blindsided by that in some way. Like,
mm,
well, at least, like, someone might judge the way that I look, but at least I know that I don't look good. Like, there's kind of like a sense of safety when we are
mm,
always judging ourselves first.
And that's essentially where the wheels fall off, isn't it? Like we're not born unworthy. We're not born thinking that we're unlovable. As babies, we're whole and complete as we are, and we demand attention. We
Yeah.
demand everything that we need to. In your own personal journey, Kelly, like I'd love to hear. Tell me, tell me about your childhood. No, but tell me about maybe some of the things that have happened throughout your journey where the wheels have started to fall off for you, where as you grew into a girl and into a woman, it all started to change for you. Like, I think we need to just sort of start going back and looking at these root causes so that we can go through and heal those parts of ourselves. But we can also be really mindful for our daughters coming through as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of women are going to relate to the perception that I have about my childhood, that I just remember always being insecure. I remember never feeling good about myself, never feeling like I was enough, always feeling like I was the ugly one, or uh, the unattractive one, or the not fun one, or the annoying one, whatever it is. And as I've started to explore this more deeply and look more specifically at the situations in my life that started to plant seeds for my insecurity, for my lack of trust in myself and my own self worth, there were very minuscule and a lot of the time seemingly very insignificant moments where a seed was planted that created this unconscious belief that bad things happen to me because of the way that I look. And one of the earliest memories that I have of this is that when I was really young, like in the third grade, I had a crush on a boy for the very first time. And I remember just being so just like enamored with him and waiting for the day that he was going to fall in love with me back. Like, that kind of childhood delusion that we all experience when we haven't really had much of an understanding of how relationships work. We just have this fantastical idea of just, falling in love even in the third grade. And one day, that boy that I had a crush on, that I was really close friends with at the time, told me that he had a crush on someone else.
Mm.
And when that happened, I remember just comparing myself to her and finding everything in her that was different than me. She had blonde hair. She didn't wear glasses. She was shorter. She was thinner. There were all of these different qualities in her that I was able to see that I lacked. And because our minds are always seeking some sense of certainty around something that created pain, my way of creating certainty and safety around the discomfort that came with feeling rejected in that moment was trying to take control over what it was in her that I was lacking and really focusing in on that. So that was the first moment that that seed was really planted for me. And then it's almost like when the seed gets planted, we start looking for more evidence in the world that that could be true. More evidence that bad things, painful things are going to happen to me because of the way that I look. And by looking for that evidence throughout my life, I found loads of it. And every single time that something would happen to me, like a friend leaving me for someone else, I would blame it on my body. I would think it's because that girl that she's now best friends with, that she's left me for, is thinner than me. She's prettier than me. She's more popular than me, right? Or when my first boyfriend broke up with me and then started dating someone else a few weeks later, it was because of the same things. It was always because of the way that I looked. When I didn't get picked in gym class, it was because of the way that I looked. It was always just assuming the answer to why did this painful thing happen had to do with my appearance.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing and being really vulnerable around that. And I think, any women and, potentially men as well listening to this would be able to resonate to some degree. There's so much that happens in the schoolyard. And
Yeah.
I definitely find, like, when I started going back and doing this work myself, I found the movies that I was exposed to as well played a really big part in my version of body image. And then watching video clips as well. We used to have a TV show here. It'd be 6 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday called Rage, and it would be the countdown of like the top 50 or the top 100 songs. And if you go back and you look at all of the video clips of all of those, those top, pop songs, just the women, the girls in that, that were just in these, skimpy little outfits and dancing and shaking
Mhm.
themselves. If we listen to some of the lyrics of songs that we then sing along to, that then we're actually programming into our minds, like that is what's becoming our belief system. And if we go back, like I grew up in the 90s, and so if we listen to a lot of those songs that we were exposed to in the 90s, there's a whole lot of self-abandonment going on, to get the guy, but then, like, when we start to break it down and look at Disney movies or the movie Grease. Grease was my favorite movie. I could recite that whole
Mm.
movie word for word. And then when I started watching it as an adult, my daughter asked to watch it, and she's 9 now, and this was a few years ago. I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'll sit down and I'll watch it with you. Just make sure it's appropriate." And I was like, "Fuck, no wonder."
Yeah.
No wonder, like, I took up smoking from a young age because that was the cool thing to do.
Yeah.
It was only when in the movie when Sandy completely changed her whole identity did she actually get Danny's attention. You
Right.
know, she had to give everything of who she was away in order to be validated by him.
Right.
And even though, I mean, these movies, yes, they're light-hearted movies. They were made a very long time ago, you know, but still, watching those, and then, like, I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, my daughter's not allowed to watch this anymore. Like, not till she's a bit older and she's really established who she is within herself, and that she knows that that's a movie, it's fake. It's not how this works. You don't have to abandon yourself in order to be validated by a male. And I think that's where we've gone wrong. Like, we need to go back and we need to check in with what are those experiences we had as little girls that really started to shape our future, or the way even
Mm,
we were validated. It could even be by parents unknowingly, like they're not, maybe doing it intentionally. I'm so mindful that when my daughter puts on a pretty outfit, that I compliment her whole being, not just, oh, wow,
mhm.
you look really pretty today. Or,
That's
if
so
I say, oh, that's
important.
a really pretty dress, I'm really mindful to say, but, and you're always pretty and your heart shines through and you're so full of light
Mm,
and your smile just radiates throughout this world. And do the same thing with my son. I'm like, you are so handsome and you are so kind. It's really just reinforcing them as a whole being, not just based on what they look like, because they're naturally going to grow up in a society similar to what we did. It's just that, we have a lot more conscious awareness now when we do the work, when we go to the root cause of these things. And I feel like we do have to go through this journey to be able to help people as well. I always say, like, what on earth have I signed up for so that I can teach through it, so that we can
yeah.
resonate with our clients, or the people that come into our field and through our doors, because we want to be able to connect with them on, a level that we've been through before. And when we start to go into, our belief systems and our conditioning, that's where we find everything that we need in order to create change in our lives. As you know, like, as you were saying, that subconscious mind holds so much. Like, our subconscious mind is 90% of our mind. And it's
Yes.
all of the pieces of information that have gone in and been stored. And so, that feeling that you were saying that you had when, you had the crush on the boy, and then he had a
Mhm.
crush on someone else, and then you made it mean, oh, that I'm unlovable, I'm unworthy. And then we go out and we find proof, in order to sustain that belief. And that becomes a vicious cycle. And as soon as we find proof, it's like, oh, tick, see, told you so, you
Right.
know? And so
Yeah.
we're just in this cycle, aren't we? Like, how do we get off this hamster wheel?
Mm. I love to take an integrated approach to this type of transformation specifically because I think that when we're talking about body image, self worth, self confidence, it's very common that we hear advice that's trying to tackle these issues from the mind. And that is a very important part of it. Like, we need to be able to look at our beliefs, look at our unconscious programming, and be willing to question it. Be willing to look for the memories, the circumstances that created these beliefs, and then look back at them with fresh eyes, with a fresh perspective, and slowly, one by one, start to pick apart and chip away those disempowering beliefs that are creating our suffering and creating our lowered sense of worth and self love. And that is a really big part of it. And when we are just talking kindly to ourselves, just trying to say the affirmations and say that you love yourself, that's great. And I encourage you to do that if it feels good. And it's definitely going to get you somewhere. But when we are just focusing our efforts on healing our relationship with ourselves solely on just trying to think more positively about ourselves, it's going to put us in a position where we are just getting more and more frustrated with ourselves when we notice ourselves picking ourselves apart or comparing ourselves to somebody else or standing in the mirror for a little bit too long, focusing our attention on the one part of our body that we don't like, because the truth is that all of our thoughts about ourselves, about our body, kind of just happen. Like, they're conditioning, they're automatic. We're not in control of our thoughts 100% of the time. Our mind is constantly picking up on feedback from our environment and attaching meaning to it based on the meanings it knows to attach to that thing based on the past. And so it needs to go beyond just the conscious mind. We need to get to the subconscious programming, really look at what beliefs we are projecting onto ourselves, onto the world that we are looking to prove to ourselves based on our childhood, based on our past experiences that were painful. And the integrative approach that I take also includes embodiment work, somatic work, emotional mastery, so that we can really take all of the stuff that we're trying to reprogram our minds with and take it deeper. And what that can really look like is giving space for the parts of us that are insecure, that do compare, that don't feel good about ourselves, that pick ourselves apart. Give those parts of us the space to express, because these parts of us are not bad. And I think that is the most important part that I want anybody to take away from this, is that our self-criticisms, our judgment on ourselves, our doubt, our self-loathing, those are patterns of thought and feeling that we learned. We learned them for a reason. And we are not inherently self-sabotaging individuals. We don't want bad things for ourselves. And so when we are watching ourselves repeat harmful patterns, talking bad about ourselves, picking ourselves apart in the mirror, comparing ourselves to other people, it's not because we're bad. It's not because we're doing something wrong. It's because on some level, some really deep, unconscious, conditioned level inside of ourselves, we learned that doing that is helpful, that it's going to protect us, it's going to keep us safe, it's going to make us feel a sense of control. And so when we can recognize the good intention of our negative thoughts about ourselves and allow those thoughts, those patterns of comparison to have their existence inside of us, to be a part of our human experience, and welcome them as the innocent parts of us that they are, then ironically, we open ourselves up to a grounded sense of worth and confidence that is authentic. It's unconditional, because it's not conditional on, I need to stop thinking negative thoughts about myself. It's like these negative thoughts can be a part of it. These negative thoughts are just a pattern that I learned, that I'm unlearning slowly and surely. Then ironically, that confidence that we find, it's not the absence of insecurity anymore. It's not the absence of comparison. It's not the absence of sometimes getting really down on ourselves and loathing parts of ourselves. It's not the absence of anything. It is the embracing of all of it.
Mm, I love that so much. And it's so beautiful because there is this culture. Sometimes we see it in life coaching as well, of this toxic positivity,
Mm-hmm.
where it's all love and light and it's all, affirmations and this. And, when we can integrate that shadow side or, the part of us that might be having that, let's call it a negative experience, it's really not, it's just a charge we've given it really, but
Mm-hmm.
when we want to be able to say to those thoughts that come in, I see you and thank you for being here because you're showing me where there's space to let some healing and some light in. And they're there for a reason. And, the worst thing that we can do for ourselves is reject the already rejected parts of ourselves. So making the parts of ourselves wrong because that was our programming and conditioning. We stay on that cycle then. And that's one of the biggest things that I work with clients. And it's so interesting. I was working with a client the other day, and she was saying that she's occasionally smoking and drinking. And she was like, but it's so wrong. And I feel really bad and I feel really guilty when I do it. And, they're not, the most healthiest of habits, obviously. And I said to her, I said, well, what if you just gave yourself a permission slip to just be okay with it? I'm not condoning, going on and, sustaining the belief and the behavior. But what if you just put the self-judgment down for a moment? Because if you're making that choice in the moment, notice if it's coming that you want to have this. If you love yourself so deeply and if you truly believe that smoking and drinking is in alignment with that, get clear on that. But if you just let that guilt be put down for a moment and the shame that you hold around it, and then see what's under that. And the more we dive into it, the more we go into it, we're actually going to get to a place where we love ourselves so deeply that we don't want to put the things in our body that aren't the best for us. But it's not
Yes.
until we just allow those things to be there so that we can be whole and complete as we are, not rejecting the parts of ourselves that we have made wrong or that society has made wrong. And I think,
Mhm.
that's such a big part of it. And it sounds like you and I do such similar work because you can't like affirmation, mantras, all that out of certain things. It will take you so far, and maybe that's an amazing start. But if you don't wholeheartedly believe the affirmation that you're saying, it's not going to land because your conscious
Mhm.
mind is going to go, you're full of shit. And then it's going to find reasons as to why the absolute opposite of that mantra is true, or that affirmation is true. And so that's where I feel like we get stuck in this shitstorm.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, what you said about no longer rejecting the parts of us that are rejected, that is such a huge part of this work because I think so many of us hold this unconscious belief that judgment is productive. Like we
Mm,
need to judge something, make it wrong, resist it in order to change it. And ironically, it has the complete opposite effect most of the time. When we judge something, when we make it wrong, ironically, we're pouring more of our energy into it and then we get more stuck to it. And this is one thing to understand it mentally. Maybe that makes sense. But how many times have we all experienced saying something, recognizing something that we're doing or that we are that is wrong, that we want to change? We want to be something else or do something else. And the more that we watch ourselves continue to go through the same pattern, we make it more wrong. We judge ourselves more, and it doesn't help. It makes us feel more frustrated, more stuck to the thing we're trying to transform. And so I understand people's initial resistance to wanting to show themselves compassion and acceptance and give themselves permission to do the things that they can clearly recognize are not good for them, like your client, because they think that if they do that, they're going to be even more like complacent with it, right? That's the fear, is that acceptance equals complacency. But what you know, what I know, and that many people that have been in this work for a long time have experienced in real time is that when we fully open ourselves up to receiving compassion and understanding and softening our edges around the things that we don't prefer within ourselves and within our lives, it frees up so much of our energy. We're able to
mm,
see so many more opportunities. We're not fighting with ourselves anymore. If anything, we're just getting out of our own way. And that is the most powerful roadmap to transformation that I've ever discovered.
that's so true. I love it. What would you say to someone listening that's like, okay, yep, I need to look at this. It's my time. I want to start to create change in my life. I want to start to embody all of this. What are the first steps, Kelly? Like, where do people even start? Like, what needs to be done so that it's not just it's not a fad, so that it's like it's a
Yeah.
deep inner lasting transformation.
Yeah. I always say it's always inside first and then out. We want to flip this traditional way of goals and transformation from this outside in approach where we're trying to change how we feel inside. We're trying to change how we operate internally by fixing the outside, getting more money, changing the career, changing your body, whatever it is. And we've all experienced it either doesn't work or it's really freaking hard to create results from that way because we're fighting against ourselves the whole time. We're sacrificing how we feel internally. We're actively putting it outside of us, and we're waving it in front of us like it's this goal that we need to chase. We can't give ourselves permission to embody who we want to be and how we want to feel now until the outside matches our expectations of what it should. And that's just a very disempowered way of living. And so when we flip that on its head to the inside out approach, it's really about looking at what it is that we deeply want to feel internally. Like, with the external goal, whatever it is, how do we expect to experience ourselves and our lives differently? And then when we identify that, we need to look at what is getting in the way of us feeling that way now. And we can't just say, it's because I haven't lost the weight yet, or it's because I don't have enough money in my bank account. We need to go deeper. We need to be willing to look at what are the parts of ourselves, the patterns, the belief systems that we hold that are directly blocking us from experiencing ourselves and our lives the way we want to now, regardless of what the outside looks like. And this is where we start to identify patterns of self-criticism, of self-doubt, of procrastination, of comparison, of worst case scenario thinking, always projecting the worst thing onto the future. If our ultimate end goal is to feel more confident in ourselves, and we're looking to achieve that through getting fit, getting healthy, changing our body, that's cool. And we can still go after that in a way that feels healthy and productive. But also, if you're really hard on yourself and every time you look at a photo of yourself, all you do is zoom in on the parts of yourself you know you're going to hate, and you're constantly comparing yourself to other people and basing how you feel about yourself based on who's around you, that's not magically going to go away when your body changes. Those are parts of you that you need to directly look at if you want to transform. And ironically, when we take that off the back burner and we make that the most important thing, the gym can wait, the eating healthy can wait, but we really look at how you are directly getting in the way of you feeling good about yourself and feeling confident now. We start to look at these patterns of self-criticism and comparison, then we have the opportunity to start to change our relationship with those parts of ourselves, which is where the real transformation comes. Because it'd be one thing to recognize, okay, I want to be confident, so I need to stop being so hard on myself. I need to stop being self-critical because that's what's getting in the way. But if that's our goal, I just need to stop thinking that way. Similarly to what we were talking about earlier, it's just not going to happen that way. We can't control our thoughts 100% of the time. And those thoughts are happening for a good reason, a conditioned reason. And so when we start to work with our deep ingrained patterns of self-criticism, comparison, or whatever the block is, then we need to work on having a relationship with those patterns where we can see them, we're aware of them, we're deeply aware that they're happening, and we can bring compassion to them, where we understand why we might be thinking that way. We look at our conditioning, we look at the world that we've been exposed to, that we grew up in, that has conditioned us to think that way, to feel that way, to experience ourselves in that way. And we bring compassion through understanding to those parts of ourselves. We don't make them wrong, and we release our judgmental grip on them. And then we take aligned action from that place. When we notice ourselves being critical and we bring compassion to it, then what do we do differently? Do we take a deeper breath? Do we walk away from the mirror? Do we take the space that we need to just regulate ourselves away from the crowd of people that we were feeling caught up in comparison with, and go to the bathroom and just take a few moments to come back to what you know is true? Or do we remind ourselves of something that we have already recognized we're trying to ingrain as our truth, like, I am enough? And we just take moments to ground that in. Whatever it is a practice of awareness of the pattern, acceptance of the pattern, and then aligned action towards a new path, whatever that looks like. That would be my number one I would say, when someone is wanting to start with this work. And where we can take it even further, and I'm so excited to hear your thoughts about this, is looking at where we're subconsciously holding ourselves back from having what we want. There's this idea that, and if you've ever read the book, oh gosh, Existential Kink. This is a beautiful book. I love it so much. It takes this phenomenon and it makes it so grounded and practical. And the idea is that if we have something in our lives or we don't have something in our lives, it's because we want that. Like everything in our reality is just a projection of our desires. Even if we can clearly say and find reasons why we don't want it, like I want to be confident, but I'm not. So why would I want to not be confident? But when we take this idea and we start to apply it to our lives and question, why would I want the thing that I have now? What might I actually fear about having the thing that I say that I want? This is when we get really interesting answers within ourselves. And we start to see that we might actually fear being confident. Because if we're confident, then we might lose our connection with the people that we've bonded over self-deprecation and self-judgment. Or we might be seen as arrogant and be rejected for that. And we might see that, well, I want money, but why might I fear having more money? Because I'm afraid I'm going to lose it all, because I'm afraid that people are going to see me as greedy, because I'm afraid that other people are going to take advantage of me. And there are always these very deeply unconscious fears that we project onto having what we want. And if we don't recognize these and bring conscious, intentional awareness to these fears, then we're never going to get very far because we need to want what we want more than we fear what we want.
Mm. Wow, yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there. And yes, like it's so true when we start diving into those subconscious beliefs, because we can have the desires there, but the block is going to be, well, what am I deeply, deeply worried about might happen when I have that thing? You know, like you said, it could be rejected by other people. You know, your friends are like, well, we can't hang out anymore because, you're just basically vibrating at a different frequency.
Right.
And, or, the fear of having money and then losing it, or someone taking it from you. So if we need to address those underlying fears that are so deeply within there, like we need to get to the core of those. And, for anyone listening, like this is what coaches support you with. This is what, hypnotherapy, that's what we do. Like we work with the subconscious. We go, deep into those really deep seated beliefs that we don't necessarily have conscious access to. If we had conscious access to them, we'd be like, oh, I know what that is, straight off the cuff, and be like, okay, cool, I can work through this. And,
Right.
go and first of all, like we break down I call it the belief deconstruction. So we look at where the belief initially came from. Whose was it? Was it mum's? Was it dad's? Was it your teachers? Was it society's? How has it served you? What might life look like if you were to change your mind and have a new belief? And then, when we start to create that new belief system, then asking ourselves how we can go find proof to sustain the new belief,
Mm-hmm.
and then asking ourselves, like, what might happen if we just keep going on the way we are? How are we going to be in 6 months' time, in 12 months' time, if we don't start to create these changes? Because no one's just going to like break into our door and be like, oh, here, I'm here to give you all the money that you desire, or give you the body that you desire, or help you with the relationship that you desire. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. We have to get up and we have to do the work ourselves. And, this is the power of having a coach, because they're there to support you. They're there to take you through that journey. They're there to hold you accountable as well, so that you reach your goals and excel in what it is that, you want to achieve and receive. And then, there's so many people, you've probably experienced this too, Kelly. You have these big changes, you have these aha moments, and then you're like, I want to help other people do this as well. There's a lot of coaches that have some really incredible stories as to what they've been through that has been, their catalyst for going, okay, I'm stepping out of whatever role they were in previously and become coaches. And I feel like, that there's this beautiful, I guess, sense of like, I am a light, like I'm a candle, and then I light your candle, and then you go light other candles, and we're just lighting up the whole place together. And of course you can do it by yourself. If you feel as though you've got the tools to do it on your own. But, if not, if you're listening to this, like, seek out a coach, like speak to myself, speak to Kelly, speak to anyone that you find that you resonate with, that has a message that resonates with you, has a program or a modality or a methodology that's going to align with what it is that you're looking for. And who are they being in the world as well? Like you wouldn't go to a business coach that's never run a business before and or knows
Mm.
failure. Or, you wouldn't go to a financial advisor that hasn't got their finances sorted. So,
Right.
so when, selecting a coach, find someone that you are so incredibly inspired by, and have that conversation with them. How can you help me? And then, like, interview multiple coaches. Like I always say to, people potentially coming on board with me, if it's not a full body fuck yes, it's a no.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna exchange, time and energy and all of that if we're not vibing together, if what the work that I do is not for you. And I'm a big girl, I can handle rejection.
Yeah.
So what would be your advice to anyone listening on top of that, Kelly?
Yeah, I think that anyone who is, interested in listening to a podcast like this is obviously in some phase of their personal development and healing journey. And I think that there is something so beautiful about gifting ourselves the permission to be at the stage in that journey that we're in. And this is a diligent practice that I still have to hold myself accountable to, because when we're in this work and we see the possibilities that are available to us, and we feel hope over all of the patterns and problems and issues in our lives that we can actually overcome and find freedom from, it becomes a race to some arbitrary finish line that always seems to move further and further forward, the more aware we become of what's possible for us. And so, to everyone that's listening to this that is wanting to transform themselves at the deepest level that is possible to them and really find out who you are beyond the patterns, beyond the blocks, beyond the limitations, beyond the beliefs that are creating your suffering, and what's really possible in your life when you step into that version of you. I want to first honor you for having that intention in your life, because it would be so much easier in a lot of ways to just kind of go through the motions of life and do what's expected of you and be content enough with that. And also, totally nothing wrong with that. I almost look up to those people sometimes because I'm like, I wish I could be content with that in some ways and not drive myself crazy trying to reach for more all the time. But there's something so beautiful about the journey of expansion and real transformation. And so I want to honor everyone that's on that journey and be the reminder that I'm sure you're going to need at different increments throughout this journey, that where you're at now is probably a version of you that you previously, some version of you in the past would be so proud of in some way or another. And so let's not let ourselves get too lost in the chase of more and better and more conscious and more evolved. And let's not let ourselves forget that this is a human experience too. It's not just about spiritual evolution and finding out who you are and effing the matrix and all of that stuff. Like, that's cool too. And I'm all for it. And like, there is so much just beauty and gift in coming back to the human experience and allowing this personal development journey to be integrated into that.
It's so true. And like, that's the whole, premise of this podcast is, it's enlightened, the enlightened journey of life. Like, we're not racing to the finish line of enlightenment, because then to me, like, that's game over. Like, I don't want to be
Right?
fucking enlightened. Like, I want to be living my life. I want to have the full spectrum of the human experience along the way. Like, I want to experience all parts. And that means going through the shadow stuff and going through the hard times and all of that. So, yeah, what an incredible conversation we've got to have today. It's been amazing to have you on, Kelly. And I have one final question before we wrap this up. And to you, what is the meaning of life?
Ooh, oh gosh. I think I have so many ideas for what the meaning of life could be. And I think living into the inquiry of whether these meanings of life could be true has gotten me very far in my life. And one of those meanings is to try to figure out why I'm here. Like, why am I here? Like, why did I choose to experience what I'm experiencing? And having that as a living inquiry always supports me in finding the value in the now, the lesson in the now. And that's always so valuable to me. But
Mm,
similarly to what we were just talking about, there's an aspect of that that can be taken too far. Like, everything in life now has to be meaningful and purposeful, and you need to always be trying to figure out what that is. And it takes you away from experiencing what is as well. And so there's a balance of the meaning of life being to figure out who you are, why you're here, but also the meaning of life being to just be in why you're here. Like, you don't
mm,
have to figure out why it is, just be in the reason. Be the reason. Like, you are purpose. You don't need to go out and try to find the purpose. You are at purpose all the time. You're in it. And the more that you can ground yourself in this entire human experience that you are living, every breath that you take, every time you sit on the couch, every time that you have a conversation with someone, every time you open your eyes in the morning, that is just as purposeful as building a crazy successful business and helping millions of people, or whatever it is that we call our purpose, right? And so there's an element of balancing the doing and trying to figure it out and be in alignment with, what we're supposed to be doing in this life, what we came here to do, and then being in that experience as well.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on as an amazing guest on the Enlightened podcast. We will link in the show notes to your website, how people can find you on Instagram. Tell us a bit about working with you. Do you have programs one-on-one? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I have two main offers. The first one is a 6-month program that I designed for healing your relationship with your body, with yourself, food, and exercise. It's called Kelevate Method, and it is taking you through a very specific journey of self-confidence, of body image, of looking at your patterns, looking at your blocks, looking at everything that's really deeply getting in the way of you experiencing yourself the way that you deeply desire to experience yourself, and then moving through that. And also looking at your relationship with food and the indoctrination that you've had throughout your life of being exposed to media and diet culture, and find the ways in which you really need and want to nourish yourself and to move your body and to fuel it in ways that is just so, empowering and enlivening for you and who you desire to be. And then I also work with people in customized one-on-one coaching containers where we will basically set up a container that is a customized roadmap to your goal, whatever that is. If it's something to do with your relationships or your health or your career or your business, it doesn't matter because all of the same work applies. It's really taking that inside out approach to transformation and looking at everything that is getting in the way of you experiencing yourself in your life the way that you deeply want, and then doing the work to transform that within yourself and then moving from that place to get the goal or to move closer towards the outer results that you're deeply desiring. And every month I do a giveaway for a 90-minute breakthrough coaching session as well. If someone wants to get a taste for the level of transformational work that I do, integrating mindset with somatic work, emotional work, and subconscious reprogramming. And if anyone here is interested in getting a taste for that, no strings attached, they can find out more about that giveaway on my website.
Amazing. And like I said, yes, we'll link to all of that in the show notes. Kelly, thank you so much for all of your wisdom. It's been amazing to chat all things self-love, body image, subconscious minds, like right up my alley. Thank you so much for being
Yes.
here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I hope you love the Enlightened podcast, and the biggest compliment you can give me is subscribing to this podcast, sharing it, and leaving a rating and review. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. My handle is @JenHamiltonOfficial, and the podcast handle is Enlightened_podcast. You can also find the video version on YouTube on my channel. Just search Enlightened and don't forget to hit subscribe. Have a beautiful day and enjoy living the enlightened journey of life.